Hi guys, this is Louis and welcome back to Acorn Hill. In this video, I wanted to share with you another element that we originally planned for the garden. The backyard, as you recall from other videos that I showed you, is pretty extensive, and in order for us to divide and create rooms in the backyard, we had to build this long retaining wall. For obvious reasons, the wall is there to prevent soil from eroding. Strategically, at each end of the wall, we placed inset steps that would go and lead us onto the elevated garden that borders the west side and the south side of the property. After building the steps, the next phase is to build vertical structures in the form of half pergolas. In our case, we decided to put an additional pair toward the west end of the garden. In total, we ended up having 4 built. Back in February, in the middle of winter, I decided to take on the project of building the pergola. When nothing was still growing in the ground, this is the perfect opportunity to see the garden as a blank canvas. I was aware from the start that this could take some time, so I paced myself and I planned accordingly. First was to sink into the ground 8 4x4 pressure treated wood that would act as the basic posts for the support of the pergola above. The next step is fairly straightforward. I cemented into the ground the posts to keep it stable should there be any strong winds that may pass through the area. At the top of the structure, using metal joist holders was the easy solution to hold the cross beam and the other parts of the pergola above. In the case of our backyard, these pergolas are ideally suited for linking different parts of our garden. They provide secluded areas and they create summer shade. Their open aspect also makes them particularly suitable for adding interest to smaller areas of our garden. Once the concrete set and with the post braced plumb, properly spaced and cut to height, I took the measurements needed to build the canopy in my shop. The west garden pergola has 3 joists that run across the 2 cross beams. The next part of the build was choosing the type of profile that need to be done to cut the pergola ends. The profile that we chose is called an elongated Roosevelt step. Transferring the design on paper and tracing it on the board, these tail rafters are easy to cut using a jigsaw. Now we get to the exciting part of the build. One of my favorite things about pergolas is how unique they can be. Each one, while built on the same principles, can look vastly different. These rafter tails are what I consider focal points, and spending a little time designing them is a good way to distinguish the entire structure. I gave lots of thought and time in choosing, building, and cutting out these rafter tails, and I'm very happy with the result. For the south end of the garden, the pair of pergolas that flank the steps were built almost in the same fashion, but slightly different. They contain 4 rafters on top of the beams instead of the 3 compared to the west side. They are also built differently than the west side because, unlike the west garden, the steps on the south garden is located along the span and not at the end of the garden. After attaching and finishing the rafters on top of the pergola, I decided to add purlins. These are optional smaller pieces of wood that I placed on top of the rafters for additional shade, dimension, and depth. They run perpendicular to the rafters and are typically made of 2 by 2 by 1 or 1 by 2 pieces of lumber. I was pretty organized with this project, and it was a surprise to me that it only took 8 days for me to complete for pergola. Spring 2020 arrived in central North Carolina, and it was welcomed heartily by our 4 distinct garden pergolas. As with any garden build I'd like to get involved in, this was pretty easy for me because I was organized. I tried to lay down the plans correctly. I bought the right materials. I had the right tools for the right job. And it was really fun experience just learning how the wood can be molded, can be cut, can be put together into a garden structure that will now be considered features of the backyard. Apart from the different plants, different perennials and shrubs that I expect to plant and have already put in the garden, I guess you can agree with me in considering the pergolas along with the other features of the garden as the main cast member as we continue to build, as we continue to develop this piece of property. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and let them know about Acorn Hill. There is a subscribe button that you can always click and the bell notification icon where you can be updated as to the latest videos that we drop on YouTube. This is Louie signing off for now, and we'll see you back here in Acorn Hill.